Connections Radio presents. Join the Love Yourself Foundation for LYF Voices at the Beverly Theater in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada on Saturday, November 15th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Be inspired by speakers who share stories about how they have embraced self-love and improved their lives. Enjoy art, music, sound baths, and more. Network with mental health and wellness leaders. Come and nurture your own health and well-being. For more info about LYF Voices, visit their website, thelyfoundation.org.
Is all about self-love, self-care, and self-thinking about in the past, we have never been this high in technology where things are changing, and a lot more people after COVID have started working from home, a hybrid life. And there's so many different changes that are occurring, but the one thing that was never incorporated was our fluctuation with hormonal changes and how this affects us when we're in the workplace, and some of the things and how we break down. This was never geared into the path that we've been on, and without having a good understanding about that, this is what can lead us into more internal disconnections, more upsets in our body. Because, did you know right now, as your body is running, we have like a whole chemical factory happening, and that's either helping you thrive, or it slowly could be burning you out. And today we're gonna dive into this. It's a fascinating intersection with hormones and the hybrid work, because again, we always had to be at work. So this was our natural environment. This is what we knew. We wake up, we go to work, we punch in, we have a certain time for lunch, breaks, punch out, certain time we're on the road, that we get home. But today now we have changed a lot of that by working from home. And really, because that is like a whole new station and a whole new lifestyle for a lot of people. It sounds like it could be easy and less complicated, but sometimes, it's not just about feeling like everything's going to be okay because now I'm at home. There's a lot of other stressors that come into that place because of the boundaries that need to be created. There's different things that have to take place that, again, because it's all new technology, we haven't lived on this road long, and we're all breaking it in as we go. We're learning, and we will teach the next generation for sure, with a lot of the mistakes and things that we've done differently and learned from. Either, some companies, they let you have hybrid lives, and then some companies are calling you back and trying to reclaim coming back into the building working, right? Well, a lot of those companies that kind of call you back into the building are having more of a turnover because of the convenience that we had filtered into having this comfort of being home, because it's not just about, the being flexible. That is a big part of it. And, employees, we get to choose and do a lot of things at home that can be done, that need to be done. But again, not having those boundaries can really take you into a current in your home that pulls you more to things that are not so much focused on where you should be in that safe space of being at work, right? So these are some of the conversations that I wanted to talk to, because of the effects and different changes that affect our cortisol levels. And this can build again, it can help us thrive, or it can start to burn us out with that increase of inflammation, the ups and downs, the dysregulated sleep patterns that we're having. There's so many things that need to be established, and especially because when you work from home, it's like, okay, well, because I'm going to be home tomorrow. So I'll extend my night tonight and do something more, when in fact that could really be hurting you more than really, because we need to connect back to a schedule of our life to relax ourselves. And again, we are so busy. And then when you're working from home, and if you're caregiving besides raising children, there's like a dual stressor attack that can happen to you by throwing off your body clock, because all these things need to get done, but then you actually have to be working also. So understanding, there's been a lot of research, and one of the research has come from, it's called the Women's Policy Research. They actually study the practices in the workplace. And with that, they see that the flexibility isn't just a scheduling, it's actually can be a gateway to better health. I mean, in some ways, certain people, when I talked about in the past, disabilities, hidden things that we don't speak about, if someone's going through transitions of breast health changes or hormonal changes where they didn't sleep last night. We talked about presenteeism, being there, but you're really not being there. There's so many things that can be established into this, but we need to create a new pattern for ourselves. And as we're digging through these tunnels to break open new ways for the future and our next generation, we are the ones that are going through that kind of challenge. It's a big challenge. And again, like I said, it could sound like it could be a great thing, but without that, having those borders that can connect you and keep you intact with your social life. I know from people that I've heard from in the past. Now, I've been retired going on almost 2 years. So I'm sure in 2 years, a lot of things have changed. But at the time when I had talked to women and things like that, there was, things that they were doing that wasn't accounted for on a flexible schedule, because you had to sneak this in, or you had to get this in, or, these things needed to get done. And it builds up more stress because you have to do that, but you have to do this, and you need to be at work at that time. The biggest part about being hybrid is, of course, the trust that the company gives by letting you work from home. That's a big factor in offering a hybrid option. Because the company really has to believe that, you are going to be doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? Companies that mandate that full return to office, as I said, they really have a bigger turnover and have to figure out new ways. The key to all of this is really understanding that the workplace flexibility isn't just about the convenience. It's about working in harmony with our bodies, our natural hormones. And again, the hormone conversation never came up, that this could be dominating, this could be making you break down more. You injured yourself, your healing process is taking a lot longer than in the past. We didn't know that it was due to fluctuations and the things that happen in a woman's body, because men can heal so much faster than we do. So it's just about the convenience of working and having that harmony. And when we do that, both our health and the work improves. I mean, they find that there's more productivity, there's a lot more confidence. But some of the things to make hybrid work a lot better is to first establish and regular sleep and wake up times, having that consistent pattern. I mean, you have to remember that when you were young, and even your young kids that you send to bed on time, you want them to go on time because you want them to be awake and aware for school and all that. Well, it still really holds true for ourselves too, especially because, when it comes time to resting our hormones and putting ourselves to sleep on time, it's just everything that really creates our body for the next day, because of all the production that's taking place, because of the healing, because of the networks that are all going to work on time. Sometimes you could have a late night meal and you actually send your body back a couple of hours on its production because it has to start doing a whole new cycle in your body. That's why they ask that you stop eating somewhere around 7 to 8 so that the body can start kicking in and doing the turnover and healing that it needs to do. So this is just something that really learning to understand the nourishment, every stage of being in hormones in our life from the minute that menstrual cycle starts all the way through and beyond, of course, because postmenopausal women, we need to be optimal. We need to grow even stronger by being nourished, by keeping regular schedule times for ourselves. And it's funny because when we're young, we don't consider that. We don't think about that, right? We're partying all night. We're out all night. I mean, I know I was there. I had a good time, but I didn't know what I was doing to myself. That's what I'm trying to get to. I didn't know that I wasn't getting myself in the correct shape I should have been balancing into. And instead, when it did come time and I hit 30, I was totally out of balance from everything. I mean, if I could show you that picture, it scared me. So that's why I wouldn't. But it was pretty scary to see that because it was like, wow, it really was like the Twilight Zone. I had the 20s. And then when I relocated to Las Vegas at age 30, the whole view was different, right? I wasn't in where I came from. It would be a little gloomy only because we had a lot of overcast, right? So the sun wasn't shining all the time. So it wasn't that kind of a brightness shining on me until that day when I arrived here in Las Vegas. And I came in April, so it was right around Easter. And I took a picture with an Easter bunny. And when I did that picture, it was crazy to see what I look like. I scared myself. I just didn't know what to do. It was just crazy. I can't even imagine and tell you because I just never saw myself like that. I never seen myself like that again. Once I burst that bubble and started regulating on nourishment and food. And this came from learning from women, not because I was having a course in it, not because somebody said, hey, you know why you need to right away, you want to run to box diets and, you know, different groups that are going to be counting your food by points. And, you know, you're in a desperate mode because you want that face and person to disappear and bring back. And the fastest way is by doing something that in the end could actually not help you because, you know, as they said in the past, that different box diets and different things like that. If you're not going to live on that lifestyle the rest of your life, there will come a point that you stop and then you'll see it all come back again. So that's what the things we had to learn back then. I mean, and, you know, there were so many different diet things back then in the 80s and early 90s that besides the exercise, but people weren't really conditioned to really get out there and do exercise, not the way we are today. And then again, coming to the West Coast, it was a whole different lifestyle. And it was a whole different shining the light on you, I guess you would say. And as I said, I mean, I think if my friends seen these pictures, they'd have a heart attack themselves because I've never seen myself like that. And again, I tell you that that's how I know, and seeing the pile up of, I guess you would say, the traffic build up of what I had done in my 20s to my life that brought these hormones to a stop, that messed me up. And, you know, we don't know this. We just keep walking through it. We're gaining weight. We're changing. Our faces are getting chubbier. We're not looking at cortisol face. We're not looking at inflammation. We're not even considering that these things are happening to us, you know. When we're getting dragged down and tired, these are different effects of hormonal changes that are happening. These are the whispers. This is what I was talking about last time I had this conversation, was nourishing deeper, really thinking of yourself and looking at a dashboard when something lights up on you because you couldn't sleep last night. You know, that may be something that just happened out of nowhere, but then again, it could be something that was actually starting to build up from the past, and now here it is. And even though you didn't sleep last night, this means you might not sleep tonight. There's different changes, but we don't recognize it as a symptom. Back to the point of when I was talking about having something written out when you go see your doctor, so that when he's going to tell you something, you could pan out this list of things that's happening to you that you find is different. It's not always just because it's your age, that's for sure. And that's why having those symptoms, having the times, the days that it's happening, they can determine and see, yeah, that's not regular. Yeah, maybe, you're not sleeping because of this, not just because, well, you're tired. Well, you were caregiving. Well, you have children, or, you were up late last night. There's always been excuses in the past and reasons, but none of this adds up and says if we keep carrying it, we're going to look broken on the way out. Our face will start revealing things that we didn't know was happening in the background. And these are the places and the better places between you and me when I'm telling you all this, because honestly, I, again, only came through this because of all the women's support, because of their conversations, because of what I seen. And in the past, I don't know, I'm sure I talked about it, but when I did enter radiology school and I was about to begin my career with that, this is early 80s. So I'm looking at technologists who have been there since the 70s and the 60s. So, because this is only like 20 years later, right? So they've only been working in their careers 20 years maybe, but it was the aging process that I seen on them. I'm only 20 years old. I'm coming into this new field. I've got a great job. I did start as an answering service. I did work on an answering service system. I did work as a cashier. I was like the general girl who used to go to all kinds of stations in the store. That was fun. So I did do these little jobs, but when it came time to this big career now at 20 years old, you're like, wow, and then when I seen this woman and I thought, okay, I've only made this decision at, 18. So an 18-year-old, what do I know? I don't know anything, but what I do know is that I don't want to age out in this. I don't want to resemble what I'm seeing right now. I don't want to break down as what I'm seeing. I don't want to get crabby and mean at what I'm seeing, because this all was just apparent in the lifestyles of what I was growing up into as a 20-year-old walking into this new field. Everybody's been working for a long time. So those were some of the things that I, kind of requested as I set my prayers out to step into this new life, not knowing, I would have never thought it would have been 45 years. I wouldn't have. But there were so many other things that came into that division of my life by touching the whole world in the medical system and being touched back by them, by the education and what was taught to me. But this isn't what happens in the real world, So this is why I bring this information to you. This is why I want you to be aware. There's so many women, even today, that I talk to, 62-year-olds, they're already feeling like, well, how they said it is, the aging. They're just feeling that, the breakdown of the aging. So my next questions are, do you take vitamins? No, I don't. Never took any vitamins, and doesn't even drink water. I was like, wow. So right there, those two symptoms are really going to tell me a lot about this person. And it's unfortunately because this isn't just this person at 62 years old. There's a lot of people that do this. And, that water is just everything to us, in our skin, in our health, in, our organs, and everything that we should be. We are a plant, literally, inside. We need to nourish it. We need to water it. We need to know that in our 20s, there's certain things we need to do for ourselves to prepare for this new life and technology, coming into this hybrid world, being able to maintain a regular exercise and routine. When I was working, I knew it was after work or it would be before my day started. But when you're working from home, how do you break that in? Because you're at home. So, and some people really never really come out. They don't go into really, let's, unless the team at work is having a team meeting, that's probably how they're going to have that social engagement. But really, it should be where either you invite or ask or request for the people who are hybrid and working from home to have this type of environment where we could establish that once or twice a week we're going to get together, so that we can have that clarity come to us, knowing that we're part of a team, we're working, and these are those boundaries that I was saying. Otherwise, it's just our whole day being at home, knowing that the kitchen still needs work on. You have to go do those dishes, and the kids are going to be coming home from school. All those things are our routine. And so by not adding the boundaries of the routine of what a work looks like at home, this is what can really hurt us more than help us. So by understanding this, because cortisol, it raises our blood sugars to give us energy and increase our heart rate, blood pressure. So it's like our body's emergency response. It's our emergency response team, exactly. And what's fascinating is cortisol, it isn't the villain, and it actually is, it's so essential. It's so essential for us to have this system. I had talked about cortisol in the past. So what happens is, really, when we wake up, because we wind down, and that's winding down all the cortisol that's in our body, because now we're going to switch into the night patterns of what's going to happen with our hormones and changes. So the cortisol in the morning gets ready to set off when we wake up. That's when your cortisol kicked in, and you're, rising up. And I say it like a ski lift chair. It's starting to go up. And as we, wake up through our day, it's raising higher and higher and higher. And then eventually it starts to come down. And by understanding this and keeping it in a balance, by having certain patterns of your life consistent, this helps keep you regulated, where just like at work, that, you start at 7:45, your break may be at 10:15, lunch is going to be at 12. So all these little breaks are happening. But again, when you're working from home, you have all kinds of schedules, because if you're fitting things in, then you're not really on a schedule that, oh yeah, I have to eat at 10:15 is my break. You've already taken your break, and that was off schedule. So that's why the consistency, keeping these patterns, because our hormones are a harmony and they're in a balance. And this is how we keep ourselves in balance. And by really understanding the scenes behind our body, in our body as a woman. I mean, men, of course, have their own hormones, but their issues are nothing compared to what we have. And that's why learning about them, really engaging in your health to understand more about them, looking up your age and read, at my age, what would I need? What kind of healthy foods do I need? What are good snacks to have, because I work from home? There's just different ways. It's like you have to create a clear physical and temporary, boundaries, because it'll only be for those 8 hours that you're on the clock. And it's only 3 days a week if you're only a part-timer. But between home life and work, you have to have a dedicated space. I know a lot of people that work from home and they don't have a dedicated space. They have just a space and it's just open, and that way they're watching everything that's going on around the house. But there should be that one space that's really closed down, even if you have to put up a partition to close you off, so that the boundaries are set and everyone knows you are at work, you are doing, your work schedule. These having those team interactions, again, so important, because it really brings you into that social life of, the work people. what we normally would be doing, instead of, being at home and then your friends just come over or give you a call during the day. That's kind of not the same social environment, because that's a natural habitat environment. That's just part of your home life, and there's no boundary right there. So that's why by setting that schedule with regular team interactions is so important. I mean, it's really important. And just really that key understanding that, because this is consistently, it shows that when we align our work patterns with our biological needs, we see a lot of improvement. And that's why women, if you don't understand these time clocks that we're really on internally, that's why we are very inconsistent. That's why we have different ailments. That's why we have different sleep patterns. That's why sometimes we're not sleeping. There's just so many things. And by remembering that a room without a door, we talk about the key. It isn't to tear down the room, but it's to install the right doors and windows, in other words, so that we can create the structure that you flow between work and rest naturally, and by letting your body know that these things are happening, even though you're home in your environment. Because the body knows, the first thing it's setting out whenever you walk into a room is the environmental security guards. The immune system sets them off to say, okay, everything's cool here. No, she won't get sick. No, you're not going to start sneezing. Everything is okay. So when we're working from home, it's a natural environment, and our body already knows that. We become kind of, it's like an accumulated, how would you say it? We acclimate to it. We acclimate it as a natural process, whereas if we were getting up, going to work, we have a different acclimation to do, right? We have to get up, we have things to get done, and then we go out the door, and then we're following a schedule that's being clocked, and we're being watched, and we're in productivity designated to where we're at, right? We're at work. And then when we come home, we know that there goes the boundaries, the windows come down, the conversation has changed. But when we are working from home, we don't have those different changes unless we create them. And because when we work with our hormones instead against them, that's what's important. We don't just survive, we thrive. We really do. And so again, by just looking at your nourishment, looking at what you're eating. I mean, again, I know that, in the workplace, it's so busy sometimes. And I know from my medical field, just from seeing that, sometimes, it's kind of upsetting to see that the cafeterias have all that big grilled food and, fast food stuff and filling. And, honestly, it's not like anybody really asks what kind of oil they're using. They're just looking to see, what they're getting. They're getting their French fries and everything. But what if it's, there's so many different oils. There's soybean oils. There's so many different things that can be so hazardous to our bodies if we don't know. I mean, I don't know a lot of people that use that because it's cooks and different kitchens that use that for, a lot bigger industrial meals and things like that. I know one time my hairdresser, she would tell me and rave about these wraps, and I love them. I went to go have one. I know she's pretty, holistic, organic. And, looks great and everything. And so she's giving me a tip next door that they have these good wraps. And it was a great chicken wrap. And I was like, wow, cool. So I went and I got one. And, and I was loving it and I'm eating it. And it was a question I didn't stop to ask, what kind of oil? So then one day I went with a friend. Now this girl, she was watching every single thing that was being put into her body. And she was younger than me. And that's what was so funny, because she was regulating herself and getting ready for something. And I can't remember what that was. So I invited her to come have this wrap. Well, she investigated what the oil was. And then when they told her soybean oil, of course, that's not on her list. And then, of course, she let me know that. And then, of course, I had to stop getting those wraps. But it was pretty shocking, because that's just a small thing that gave it so much flavor and was very attractive. And acclimating to my taste buds. And then suddenly now I had to say, no, I won't be doing that ref no more. But that was thanks to her, because it's such a small thing, like I said. And the buildup of that, could actually become more, like processed junk. And that's not stuff that we want in our bodies. Because if you're at home and if you're cooking for yourself, I mean, I know a lot of people use a lot of good olive oils, avocado oils, grapeseed oils, all these great plant-based oils that are healthy for our bodies, that help us digest and live from the food that we're eating. But then you have the other ones that can really congest you, clog your body up, um, give you more inflammation. Again, it's such a small thing, but it's so important. So that's why I was saying that when I see these fast food grills in a hospital-based place where, if we're keeping everybody else healthy, how come nobody's keeping us healthy? Why? I know it's quick and all that, but unfortunately, the things that could be healthy are always wrapped up, already sealed in, instead of being naturally just made, like a salad or something. They just throw it all together, and then you have to do what you have to do, because this is all you have to pick from. So then sometimes that's not that appealing. So of course you'd rather be at the grill. And I know where I came from, they really cook some good food at that grill. But my main thing is really that, when you can understand how these small things can really affect your daily life and really create changes in your body that accumulate and can, at the end, be right before you hit perimenopause, they can really add up. And then that perimenopause comes in a little stronger, because all this stuff is happening. It's just very chaotic. I mean, this is what happens, and this is why we get into chronological age diseases and all these different things, because we didn't take care of the biological process in our bodies by helping us wash it all out, especially by having a lot of water. When I really hear women don't drink water, it's hard to really believe, and it's hard to see that if they only knew the benefits that they would be receiving, instead of seeing that, their skin is dry, they're getting more wrinkles on their face, they lost moisture and vitamins, nutrients. I know that our food doesn't have a lot of that. And I know when we're at work and that fast food, we're not getting it there. And by not taking your own lunch, I mean, I'm going to tell you what my lunch was, okay? And I like soy, I like tofu. So I would cook some tofu. I would have a sweet potato. I would have an avocado, and I would have tomatoes. And that would be my 10 something a.m. breakfast to, fuel me. And a spinach would be incorporated on that too. So that would be, and I would unpack that, and I'd come to work and I'd have it, because I can make abundance at home. And then every day I take some of it and take it to work. And this was just so fueling, and it just really felt good every day that I would create my own meals, take them there. And, again, this is all a learning process. I know women, we don't have a lot of time. I know we want to have quick things, but that's why this whole season is all about slowing down, thinking about yourself, preparing for yourself, because you want to give that present, but your presence is what the present is all about. Because if you're sick and you can't be there to give that present, then it's an empty gift with only the love and thought in it is there, but to not have you present because you were overworked, you're tired, it was a long day, finally I got a day off and I just want to sleep, open the gifts without me. I'll see you for dinner, or I'll see you for the Christmas lunch, or what have you. These are the things that we shouldn't do anymore. We need to take time for ourselves, because from the past we've learned that because of all this time that goes by so fast, women being busy, we've learned from that last generation that have taught us. But what what I've learned from that was the chronological breakdowns that occurred with no solutions, with the midlife crisis of enlarged belly and the starvation that takes place. We didn't even talk about that, but there's a lot of starvation that takes place, and that's not a good thing for our hormones either, because we can become afraid to eat because of the buildup that keeps happening. Even when we just look at food, we feel like we've gained it. So, one end of the spectrum is really being in that balance, and then you have where you start losing balance, and now you don't have any balance at all because you're afraid to eat, and there's something happening with you and you don't know exactly why, and it's being uncaptured, and it just gets very chaotic in our bodies. And this is why, again, this isn't a conversation I've ever heard from anybody telling me as I worked, where I could get on a podcast and listen to somebody. I'm not saying it's not today. I'm saying it from my past. There was no rules like this. There wasn't anybody saying that. When you talked holistic, and from me, being from my neighborhood, when I would talk like that, I would look like I was crazy. I really would. I would look like I'm not from the same world. Like, how could you be? Because I'd stand in the middle of the store and there was nothing here that I could possibly want, because I wasn't going to put that in me. I wasn't going to do that. And I wasn't going to do that. So, you just get crazy sometimes, because for someone who likes to eat all natural, sometimes we have a hard time finding those things, because it's all just mounds and mounds and mounds of, stuff that's quick, fast, easy, and unhealthy and damaging later on as we build up and accumulate all that. So, because when we work with our hormones, as I said, instead of against them, we will have a better life. And it does give you so much more power as you develop through the years, through the days of that job. When you see yourself coming to work and not having to cover up so much, because it's just a natural glow that you are carrying because of the care that you give yourself, the self-love, the self-care. People will look at you and you will rock like a star, because they want to know, what is she doing? Oh my God, how old is she? How did she get there? You're kidding me. I mean, because we all live in the same world, but we all take different roads and make different decisions and choices. And every day that we're in our workplace, we only have so much time, and it's not a prison, but it's time that has to be given. And then we get our own time. And next time I'm going to tell you all about this great time I'm having ever since I retired. And it's just more than I could imagine. It's more than learning so much on the other side of retirement, of engaging in teams that are in growth to develop more optimal, crazy good stuff. So for the hybrid workers, to align your work patterns with your biological needs, we definitely want to see big improvements by understanding this and knowing this. And I hope some of these tips really, give you something to think about, because it's a structural shift, and it's how organization operates in us, because it's our life and it's our health, and we know how we're running this engine and what we're putting in it, and that's what's the important part, since we just want to shape the workplace into wellness campaigns. We want to bring the abundance of being productive, because there's a lot of people that when they do stop working, they're like so bored from not doing anything. But there's so much more that can be done when you have the energy, the vitality, and that go-getting attitude. And what I really want you to go get is to really enjoy your life. Have a good time this season. Watch what you're eating. Really think about the choices that you make, because again, I told you in the past, there's been so many bad choices that were made that later on, you could have seen it in your own family members, people that, actually broke down, got sick. later on in life, people will relate, my grandmother, she had this, she had that, she had this, but they didn't know what we know today. So this is why I bring you this, to install those doors and windows for that conversation and open them up at the appropriate times with that social team, and then close that window when it comes time to seeing the family, or when you have to go run those errands, or when you're getting ready to do your caregiving moments of life and giving of yourself. But remember, we want to flow and give out of a full cup from ourselves. We don't want to give them fumes. We don't want to be depleted when we do pour into them, because that's where we've been hijacked in the past. So I want you to keep control and take those choices wisely. Have a great day today. And this is Lisa Vasquez coming to you from prconnectionsradio.com. Living life in liberating menopause. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Envision U. Envision U has discovered how to impact spirit, body, and soul with spray technology in just 30 seconds. With Envision U, you can achieve optimal health and start living the life you have always dreamed of. Use the promo code envisinu.com/VernDix to take control of your health naturally. PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.